Hey there. It is 12:07 p.m. It is February 10th. It is Tuesday afternoon. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, it's just Tuesday afternoon. So I do want to come on here and make another video. I just got home and I'm just kind of taking my jacket off and stretching out a little bit and thinking about some of the stuff that I've come to understand. And I think it should be understandable how uncomfortable I feel in this situation and gaining a full understanding of what happened and the people that were involved and the explanations to what happened. Like, I talked about me being bullied at Murray Family Farms, why Steve Murray ignored, anything that I ever did, any accomplishments. And I was not trying in any way for one upmanship. I was only trying to secure my future. See, this is what I get upset about, because this is a group of people who were stalking me, spying on me, acknowledging me, and then measuring what I do, and then them competing against me in a way that I feel as though this, this is not my purpose. My purpose is that I knew that my mother, at the time, my adopted mother, Mary Gordon, was no longer going to be available for me at some point, so I needed to take care of myself. You know what I mean? And so people take this like, oh, she's trying to one up somebody. I am beyond upset. But yeah, I do have special understandings of how things should work in the office. And so, of course, I do believe in adding novelty to what I do for a living. And because I see that there's oftentimes problems in the workplace, right? Things that relate to maybe a religion issue, maybe it's an issue relating to race, could have something to do with a marital issue, whatever the issues. I see a lot of things that go on that are illegal, right? And because I'm somebody who is unique, I have dealt with the unfortunate, experience of dealing with people who do not give thought to these sort of issues. Okay. Yes, I am what they call a protected class, meaning, the things that happen to me shouldn't happen to me. They should be addressed. Why? Because it puts me at a disadvantage. What happened at Murray Family Farms was supposed to have stayed at Murray Family Farms. Okay. But what it did was this issue caused bullying, and then I didn't know the entire story. That's another issue when it comes to stalking. The person who stalks you, they hold the entire narrative. Sarah could have told people any one of those stories, whether that be me having a relationship with her, wanting to be a home wrecker or polygamy, whatever that issue was, okay? And it could have been all three within different time periods or whatever, morphing into something more strange as we moved ahead. But whatever the case is, I don't know her, okay? And I know that I know that somehow at some point I can recall communicating with somebody that I used to know, which was Amanda in Lancaster, discussing this issue back in the early 2000s. Okay. So, which led me to believe that perhaps maybe Bruce has been stalking me with his family. And then, of course, Sarah jumped in at some point, somewhere between the time period of 2006 and onward. Okay. I talked about, my experiences of taking Joel to the Christmas party in 2010 after he and I moved back in together, and then this whole issue got to be explosive. So, like I said, I don't know. It could have been all kinds of different issues, reasons what Sarah brought up, or how she got people to participate, turn on her side, think she had a case, or be, whatever the case is. I've never met Sarah, had a conversation with Sarah, never looked at Sarah's social media accounts, none of that. Okay. And, when people find it hard to believe that a woman of color could literally move on from a person who was white, right? Because in their minds, they feel as though white people have everything. Why in the world would I do that? Well, it's nothing personal. I don't think of it that way. It's just the fact that Bruce, to me as a person, was not somebody I enjoyed being around. Okay. There were certain things that we enjoyed together or we had in common that we enjoyed, but those are not any reasons to solidify a long-term relationship. You know what I mean? He enjoyed some of the same music I liked. He liked some of the same movies I liked. Which is indicative, not so much of, is indicative of our age group more than anything else. But Bruce and I were very different people in a lot of ways. And I feel victimized by him and his alternative personality that has been hidden up until just recently. Like I said, I knew him as the kid who was at the Kingdom Hall, and of course, as a young adult, he and I had a relationship, which resulted in me giving birth to my son. And I realized that he and I could never have a relationship because I didn't want to be a part of his abuse. You know what I mean? And that was my choice. That was my choice. So, when you're dealing with gang stalking, and I understand that's what I've been dealing with this entire time. Okay. People have been like having, commotions and discussions about me. And I didn't know what they were talking about. I honestly felt as though maybe they were just maybe interested in the fact that I speak well, or maybe I'm different or whatever. But now I understand that there was like an actual narrative about me, and I'm shocked. I am shocked. The message I'm getting right now is that people recognize that. Oh, I am shocked. I don't know this person, and there's proof that I don't know this person. I'm completely flabbergasted. But see, this makes sense. The reason why the talk that was going on around me was covert. The reason why I had people like Jackie and Angelo, gaslighting me, or, trying to make me question my sanity, or belittling my concerns about, my safety, is because this is their mentality. Okay. But now I'm looking at this and I'm even more disturbed, and this should have never happened. Okay. And this is a great example of human trafficking and what to look for in workplaces, and why this is dangerous and why it should not happen. The message I'm getting right now is that people are talking about me formulating business partnerships. I don't know people here in this community, okay, and it's very difficult for me. And the message I was getting as I was walking home was something about me and my lifestyle, okay. My lifestyle is in no way a way of flipping the bird to people who have responsibilities to their families or their communities or their belief systems. I am not. I am a deviant within the social order, mainly because I was a victim of MK Ultra, one of these setups. I certainly didn't ask to be reincarnated or be cloned again. So these things happen, you know what I mean? And so I have tried to be self sufficient my entire life. I've never tried to, ask people for things. But, at this point, I see that I have been victimized multiple times, systematically, because of the, collaboration of, groups like Masons and CIA and church individuals and people on their free time collaborating with other people, throwing in their 2 cents and making up stories or exaggerated tales about me. You know what I mean? And I've come to understand that this is crazy. You know what I mean? When it comes to the life of Christianity or whatever, I have given those options thought. Okay, I'm in no way a rebellious person because I choose not to be a part of an organized religion. Some people look at organized religion as a letdown. I feel let down by organized religion, and I would say that the observation of what went on with my family, the kids of 533, as well as this merger with the Collins family and their nonsensical religious gobbledygook, as well as the issues of me coming to understand that these operatives have been working through church systems for a very long time, which skews the whole, blurs the issue of the Christ consciousness, because people start throwing in, reasons or their personal vendettas and stuff, and the lines get blurred. What people have held against me and persecuted me for, they have no reason to. You know what I mean? I look at myself as an upstanding person, a very wholesome person, a person who presents themselves well, and I'm worthy of respect. Okay. And so what people are talking about in the community is they talk about my lifestyle. My lifestyle is a result of me dealing with the sort of issues that my family, as well, this includes the people of 533 as well as the Collins collaboration, their brainwashing, their what spiraled into what I have to say a cult type behavior, and then throwing Sarah in the mix somewhere within this group. Okay, it is very convoluted, and it would never be my preferred selection of friends. Why? Because there's conflicts of interest within this group. Okay, the very fact that we have, my family my former family and this collaboration with the Collins people, I have specifically said, do not, do not contribute to my emotional well-being. Some people who do not contribute to my higher level of consciousness or my ability to survive in a positive way. These are people who abuse me, whether through them trying to belittle me on some way, they are not positive for me to be around. I made a conscious decision as an adult, okay? And unfortunately, at the time, my siblings as well as Mary Gordon were convinced, just because I smoked marijuana, and yes, it was illegal at that time, that I was not capable of making such a major decision. Okay, but see, that's the unfortunate issue, is that my parents, as well as the kids of 533, as well as their associates and friends, they refused to see me for who I really was. They always wanted to see me as a flawed person that needed to be reprimanded, even when I demonstrated to them multiple times that I am a capable person who's able to manage my own life. Okay, so why do they create these narratives? Well, number one is that they because I'm a clone, right? They believe that I am somebody who is backwards in my thinking, and because I'm backwards in my thinking, I need correction. This could be one of the reasons why at some point there was a lot of talk about me, rejecting, mainstream society standards and stuff like that. That is not in any way me doing so because I am ignorant. And there's nothing wrong with people who follow trends. If you have the financial resources to pay for every fashionable item that comes out, or you're somebody who does that, then hey, go for it. That's great. I'm just not one of those people. I'm somebody who tends to vibrate towards things that evoke certain memories in me, or it's a color that looks good on me, or it reminds me of a special time in life or something. I have my reasons for why I do the things that I do, and perhaps maybe from their point of view they look at me as somebody who's peculiar. But you would grow up in the same way if you were someone like me. Every time you walk in a room, there's somebody talking about you, gossiping about you, whispering about you, you know what I mean, rolling their eyes when they talk because they have been taught to discredit you. Okay, because according to them, I'm supposed to be an artist and I'm supposed to have my head in the clouds and blah, 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 blah. These are people who went to great lengths to discredit me in every way they possibly can, even to sit here and obscure test results. Okay, so I understand that me simply and humbly trying to better my life in my existence, okay, back 20 something years ago, they looked at it as a form of competition. No, I was just a far-sighted individual that did not want to be in the situation that I'm in now. Okay. But see, now something happened in my life that was unavoidable. I had no idea that, I had this network that insisted upon my presence when I did not want to be around them. You know what I mean? And I'm disturbed by the actions that they took. I'm disturbed by, how aggressive these people became. I'm disturbed how Sarah came into the picture. You know what I mean? I'm pinpointing, like I said, the 2006 time period, somewhere around there. At least that's at least the time period where they got married. Okay. Meanwhile, I thought that Bruce existed in San Francisco. Lisa lived in Lancaster. I never thought these people communicated together. Or, because I feel deceived. I feel deceived because, this is their little game that they like to play. They like to sit here and play. And they also like to create narratives, okay? Perhaps maybe they feel as though, if I pick out something nice to wear, then I'm wearing it because I want Bruce to see this. And see, this is absurd, thinking. The fact of the matter is, I have always been passionate about clothes. And this is who I am. I've always been this person. I was this person when I met Bruce many years ago. Okay. And perhaps maybe Bruce feels as though, I'm not his ideal kind of woman, but at the same time, he's married to Sarah. And I feel very strange that somebody's analyzing me like this, especially somebody who took their time to downgrade me and talk shit about me and, then create some sort of drama, some sort of narrative about me in some sort of love triangle, whether it's love triangle, polygamy, whatever it is. Okay. This is what I'm getting. Okay. And it's all lies. Okay. So I'm living my life. I'm trying to find good in things that I feel are good, still good, worth putting my time into. And I will tell you, it is not this group of people. I cannot stand these people. Okay. And I have made, many efforts in my life to remove them. Like, for example, I moved down here. Now, I understand that Terry moved here, but I never made any communication with her, contact with her, or nothing. Okay. I live over here. Wherever I have ever chosen to live, I've never made any communication with her. Never asked her for anything. Never asked, hey, could you babysit my son? Never asked her for shit. So nobody can sit here that say, "Oh, well, I ever asked her for anything." I resent her intruding into my life, okay? And not only do I resent her intruding into my life, I resent her insistence on sticking into my life. Okay, because what she was willing to do was make me sacrifice my life for her, and I absolutely cannot stand her. The message I'm getting right now is something about marijuana. Yes, it is illegal. It's legal to possess marijuana, and people do support me. So my father is in heaven, and he chooses to be there. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't know. I would say that perhaps maybe the Collins were interested in us for exploitative reasons. You know what I mean? And see, that right there should tell my son that, his father is a piece of shit. Okay. And so I see this as for what it is. And, I made a decision that I didn't want Bruce to be a part of my life a long time ago. And I'm shocked and disgusted that not only are they just a little bit prejudiced, these people are outright racist, and they need to consider that. And the answer is go to hell. Basically, is what I'm saying. Anyway, so people suspect that I'm going to have new beginnings. And like I said, it's hard for me to imagine new beginnings because I'm traumatized by what happened here in the community. Okay. I'm traumatized by the serious nature of what happened in the community. Okay. And it is a serious issue. You know what I mean? Number one, I realized I was stalked for a very long time. I realize now that there was gossip around me. Okay. Gossip that I could not avoid. You know what I mean? And people were willing to create narratives about this gossip. You know what I mean? And perhaps maybe it's because they see that I'm somebody who still finds the value in wearing nice clothes. Yes, I do. I'm a clothes fanatic. Okay, this is something just like, Rashawn was screaming and crying about his guns. He talked about his guns. Well, my clothes are just as important. The message I'm getting right now is something about me sharing this information to people who are young, me inspiring people, and that yes, my father is in heaven. Something about that. Me inspiring people. I inspire people. Okay, well, that's cool. You know what I mean? All I'm saying is that because I'm somebody who had to grow up by themselves. Okay, I've had to rely on myself more than anyone. Okay, I've never had anybody that really felt any true concern for me. Okay. Their interest in me was primarily to benefit themselves. Okay. And every action that they had took in my life shows it. Okay. And okay, that's fine. And and dandy, but they have affected our life in a way that demonstrates how destructive their negative attitude is towards us. Okay. And so this is something I can't overlook. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, we had an entire community that orchestrated this to support what these people did. So I'm basically imploring people like Donald Trump, as well as the governor in California. I'm asking for assistance because things are not here right where there should be. You know what I mean? I have been dealt a terrible injustice, and I'm still dealing with the shock from it. I'm still dealing with the shock from it. You know, I'm now coming to understand this whole issue with Sarah, and I'm really disturbed that number one, I believe Bruce may have be some people are, what do they call it? Pathological pathological liars. They make up very bizarre tales or something that perhaps maybe he made a story that I was. It is kind of interesting for an older type man to imagine two women fighting over them. It makes their life seem racy and interesting. You know what I mean? But the fact and the truth be told, it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. And I'm just disturbed by the entire thing, because there's all this gossip and speculating and making up stories that everything has wasted in, my life. And yeah, I was dead serious. I wanted to, move to Los Angeles or do something different with my life to start over. I felt like what happened after Murray Family Farms was very disturbing to me. You know what I mean? Obviously, I noticed something wrong was in the air, something, very weird. I do believe that that must have been Bruce and Sarah stalking me. And it's so bizarre. You know what I mean? And all that time, I don't recall constantly reflecting on them. I don't recall like, thinking about Bruce and Sarah. I never gave them any thought. But if by mere chance they did come to mind, like maybe Houston came back from visiting them or something, the first thing that would come to my mind that they should be content, everything's fine with them. Like, I never realized that they were involved in my life. I honestly thought that they were living good, wholesome, decent lives and they were satisfied in their life to the point where they never had to resort to bullying behavior because I felt as though they lived satisfying lives. I figured Sarah made enough money, Bruce made enough money, they lived in an apartment most likely. They probably had decent lives and income, and everything was great for them. I'm just shocked. I'm just shocked. You know, I'm shocked. The message I'm getting is something about me sharing this information with people brings opportunities. I think perhaps maybe I hope it does. You know what I mean? Because stalking is actually more common than we believe, and generally it is somebody that we know, or in my case, somebody who is associated with someone that I know who Bruce is. So Bruce has been stalking me for many years. Okay, and then of course, as he has moved on and brought people into his life. For example, co-workers, friends, then of course his wife. Okay, in this case we had Sarah. Sarah was involved with it, and she felt as though, she wanted to mess with me because I was possibly in her mind competition or whatever. And I feel upset because I got sucked into something I would have never asked to be a part of. In fact, I was just trying to build my life because I understood that my life was so scattered in Lancaster. That was it. You know what I mean? And I wanted to live here in Bakersfield because at the time I thought that me and my family were actually family, number one, like real family siblings, so that if, we were close enough to where if I needed to see them or something, we were just close enough to go visit at those times. I never realized that I was adopted or that I was a CB or related to CB Braganza. And apparently, CB Braganza is someone who's talked about in church discussions. You know what I mean? Like I said, I only understand churches and religion based on understanding or studying the doctrines of what is believed in certain churches and perhaps maybe studying maybe some of their rituals or services or something along those lines. But to actually attend these meetings, like repeatedly be a member, have exclusive access to what gets discussed in those meetings, like I have no idea. So apparently this is the kind of stuff people discussed, you know what I mean? But I'm sad that people actually projected me as a some sort of social deviant when in fact no, that's not the case. You know what I mean? The message I'm getting right now is that people are expressing a lot of respect for the New World Order and law enforcement. And apparently, I do have support. Like I said, I'm not aware of it. Now, if I have not checked Facebook or social media, I do get a lot of friend requests. I do believe that might be a way of showing respect or support, and I do appreciate it. You know what I mean? It's been hell. I had no idea that. I knew things were weird, but like I said, it's been a very long time since I realized that something was wrong. And now I understand, where all this came from. And it's disturbing to me because, like I said, everyone that I used to know is not really what I used to know or who I used to know. And of course, I see them differently now. Why do I see them differently now? Is because they work in a covert manner. They've done things behind my back that were meant to attack me, hurt me, harm me, belittle me, put me behind, or hurt me, depress me, stress me out, whatever. Okay, they did everything they could to harm me in ways that they knew I didn't even believe or accept. You know what I mean? They were willing to hurt my son to get a message across. And so, yes, I'm a victim of abuse, financial abuse. I'm a victim of emotional abuse. I'm abuse of, in this case, I would say, a religious abuse. Yes, they would use religion to actually, abuse somebody. And like I said, this is an indication that it is a cult because everybody comes from different religious backgrounds. What they are interested in is the apparition, which I said again, this is a circular argument because the apparition appeared because I am a victim of stalking. Apparently, the apparition appeared because there was danger witnessed, in the ether that was surrounding me. Like, the angels and everyone that could see could witness that there were online discussions about me going on. There were people talking and whispering about me in corridors and churches, in parking lots, wherever you can imagine, with all kinds of weird, bizarre stories about me, exaggerated and possibly mostly lies. You know what I mean? No, I am not somebody that is a bad person. I had nothing to do with Sarah. I never tried to obstruct their relationship. I am literally a woman who has survived on her own and certainly didn't need to deal with Sarah's childish behavior. Something about my father existing, and yes, I am somebody who supports the idea of my father not being cloned again. You know what I mean? I don't think that cloning is a good idea for several reasons. You know what I mean? Unless, of course, you are able to give a person a decent life, a decent environment. Like in my case, I would have been better off had I been raised in a different environment. Okay, and you wonder, it's like, who are these people? You wonder, like, who is this person? Who is Tanya to me? In the grand scheme of things, right? Who is Rashawn in the grand scheme of things? It's funny because I feel as though, looking back, I feel as though Rashawn gave me little tidbits of information. You know what I mean? Just by his little sarcastic remarks. And now I put it together. I'm like, he must have knew stuff about me. And see, what the whole thing is about the church, where they go wrong about this is the fact that, and see, this is why I feel as though it was done in a sinister way, because why don't you just tell people? Why don't you tell people what the issue is? Why don't you tell people, hey, you know what, you were CB Braganza. Why don't you, and then correct the issue? But it's this like this fiddling, farting around. You know what I mean? And where that comes from is generally, I feel as though it comes from the CIA operatives. You know what I mean? And I feel as though that's the stupid part. Okay, which gives it away that it becomes a corrupt issue. The issue becomes corrupt, and people get corrupt, and people start doing stuff. And this is what happened because really, I mean, I can understand the supernatural issue, but the supernatural issue, like I said, once again, it comes from this issue, me being stalked by Sarah. And yes, I do have psychic gifts, but they have been heightened. You know why? Because I have been dealt this issue of betrayal and dishonesty from multiple people to where I don't even want to be around people anymore. Why? Because I'm tired of hearing the bullshit. I'm tired of hearing it. It literally becomes an issue where it becomes like hurtful to have to hear people with their stupid charade. Why? Because this charade is one of the most painful things that's ever happened to me. Why? Because it was unnecessary. It didn't have to happen. And it did happen. It happened by a person that I consider to be very evil. And the message I'm getting is that that is something about, there's people talking about this issue right now and realizing that they screwed up big time. And they did. And it's all over the community and everybody knows it. Okay. So something about me teaching other people and being beneficial, and having support. Like I said, I don't see the support. Somehow my channel is controlled by the Bakersfield employers. Which employers they are, I do not know specifically. Okay. But I do appreciate the people who have supported me and people who have supported me for a very long time, especially when they witnessed this setup. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't see how you could not have witnessed that this was a setup. This was an outright bullshit lie. Period. Okay. So the message I'm getting right now is that my father is, of course, in heaven, and yes, he waits for me, and I'm glad. This was a cult that developed, like I said, this cult developed its own like little weird belief system, and it was something that obviously I would not have agreed with, nor would my father agree with. So, like I said, I believe Sarah probably was at the helm of this. Anything else I want to say? People look at me as somebody who is a decent person. Yeah, I am. You know, I'm actually a very wholesome person, you know what I mean? But I live in this weird world, you know what I mean? And I don't feel as though it should get me down. Like, I feel as though I should continue to do things that make me happy, even though I live a very depressive life. You know, I have no family structure. I don't have a true family. I have a family that was willing to basically backstab me and hurt me and harm me and do everything else to me and leave me psychologically traumatized for the rest of my life. Okay, so no, I mean, there's people who come from unstable backgrounds and they don't need people trivializing their life. And that's exactly what happened. The message I'm getting right now is that yes, my son has come to the awareness that Sarah was a wicked and evil person. You know what I mean? And see, this is what I'm saying is like these covert programs. These covert programs, they'll tell you to do something and you don't even know why you're doing it. They might say something to, like, for example, let's just say, for example, like your neighbor, their mother just died, right? And they were very close to their mother. And so this person is really psychologically traumatized about their mom, right? So they tell the store clerk, right, to sit there and bring up things about their mother, right? Because the person behind it, I have noticed in my targeting, I now look back and I realize just how twisted it was and how this person would go out of their way to try to psychologically torment me on many levels, okay? And now I understand where it's coming from. This is coming from the heart and the competitive nature of a woman who is competitive of life in general, okay? She is competitive over her love interest, which I find so funny, the whole Bruce Collins thing, okay? And then the issue of wanting to fight for social standing and all this other nonsense. And it bothers me, okay? Because like that's the last thing I need to sit here and argue over. You know, I'm not somebody who wants to how can I say this? Okay, I understand there's a certain way that people live, okay? And I respect that, okay? Just leave it alone. Leave it alone. You know what I mean? And she wouldn't leave it alone. She just kept picking and picking and picking at me. And where does all this picking and picking and picking come from? Because like when you really think about it, shouldn't this picking and picking and picking ended a long time ago when I left Murray Family Farms? Where does all this long-term picking and picking and picking come from? It comes from a jealous woman who is jealous not only of her love relationship, but her social standing and everything else. Okay. And mind you, I didn't even know who she was. Okay. And yeah, I'm pissed off about it. So the message I'm getting right now is that yes, my predictions of those who died is accurate. And I'm traumatized. I'm traumatized. You think that I'm sitting here at my house, right? Just being okay with everything and I'm at home. I feel these weird things that shift. I feel these shifts of energy that I don't like feeling. Okay. That while I'm sitting here wondering, what the hell's going on outside, I feel this shift of energy. And it's this shift of energy that I feel left disturbed with. See, because like I said, in my mind, there's like this grid of people that I've used to know or known at some point in my life. And like I said, giving you the examples, like let's just say, for example, it starts off with 50 marbles just bouncing around existing. Then all of a sudden it just like dwindles down to this small number and they're just kind of like pinging around in this grid. It's bizarre. Okay. And it's strange because, like I said, it's like you start feeling this bizarre shift of energy that people are no longer here. And then you think of the reason why they're no longer here. And it was because of their own sick stupidity. And the fact that there's these sick individuals were sitting here on my tail for the longest time. And now it explains what happened to me. And I'm a little shaken by it. It is. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like disturbed. Okay. And I understand this issue of my father suffered. The apparition came because I was being conspired against. The message I'm getting right now is yes, my predictions of those who died is accurate. So Sarah was out for me. This explains the sabotage at Murray Family Farms. This explains the issue that happened over at Organized Sports. This explains Lisa, sitting here like, critiquing me as a subordinate. This explains the girl Selena Bruce acting belligerent out of nowhere, right? This now also explains why Steve Murray was reluctant to acknowledge my contributions, as well as why Rex Laverne didn't want to acknowledge my contributions, why Alita didn't think that I was somebody who was really deserving to run her entire business, and why Mary Landucci was acting the way that she was. These people believe that I was really a part of either three of those scenarios that I mentioned, and no, I am not. I don't even know Sarah. And I'm angry because my life has been put on hold because of this woman that I do not know, nor do I want to compete with. And I'm going to tell you, I have encountered some of the strangest people because of this woman. Job interviews that I've had gone through that have left me traumatized, and have left me traumatized probably for the rest of my life. Because now I understand the pathology behind it, and it's disturbing to me that these people would actually conduct a job interview on behalf of this woman who was making up this weird story about whatever the dialogue was, okay, which isn't true. Okay. And then I was put in through all of this for the last 12 years after leaving Murray Family Farms, and it was bullshit. The message I'm getting right now is that there is support coming from everywhere. And like I said, I'm not able to see it. If you've reached out to me on Facebook, I appreciate it. I am very, very glad that there is support for me. Thank you. I know for a very long time she was working behind the scenes and causing it so that I was not communicating with people. She was using all kinds of stuff against me, and a lot of it had to do with the supernatural issue of my father. My father came because of Sarah. The message I'm getting right now is about business communicating. Yes, I do need to communicate to businesses. I've been trying to reach out and follow up, and it's difficult to find jobs because of the Indeed.com, fake job lures and all of these other things. Okay, there's so many things that go into looking for work, especially as a targeted individual. And this is one of the issues that it's important to talk about. It's important to talk about, how your family puts you in these weird situations. Okay. Also, it's important to understand that, I don't know people in the community. The net trafficking network is responsible for destroying my social life. Okay. They keep you isolated. They keep you in their little bubble, okay? And they use other people to keep you in it, okay? So this is why I'm talking about, be careful about what you do for people, what you do for the trafficking network. You could be part of a crime, and this is what it is. This is a crime syndicate. Please be careful, okay? What else do I want to say? Okay, great. Something about support is coming from everywhere, and something about people believe that I have a great mind, meaning like I'm able to manifest things. I'm only able to manifest things through logic and reason, okay? Like this isn't magic, this is using logic and reason. I'm understanding what these people did, okay, and the damage it did and how it was caused, okay? I'm devastated. Okay? But I will continue to fight for my life. I have to live. I want my son to live. Okay. What's left of our life after these people destroyed it. Okay. And if there are any good people in this community, and I hope that there is, that they will stand up and take me in as an employee. I'm tired of dealing with this. This is a nightmare, and I hope that I stand for, the justice of other people, perhaps battered women who have been in this situation, and the foolish behavior of a lot of people thinking that this is a righteous thing to do. It's not. Okay, I understand and I respect the idea that there are some religious groups who see a order of things, perhaps maybe they believe that the man should be the head of the household or whatever. Okay, I understand it. I respect that. Okay, but you know what? There's always these exceptions. I'm that exception. Okay. And I really don't need people playing games with my life. And I do believe that the Collins, as well as the kids of 533, were playing games with my life. And that is unforgivable to me. The message I'm getting right now is that I am very grateful for their support and that I am doing the best I can to be positive. My son also came to realize that they were what they were, and I believe he believes it. Okay. I believe that a lot of these people are gone. Okay. And I believe that my son knows that they're gone. Okay. And I'm disturbed by the entire thing. I'm disturbed by the entire thing. Okay. So uh, there was a lot of ignorance in this group to believe in the stuff that they believe to the point of them bringing this down upon themselves in the first place. And I'm disturbed by all of it. Okay. Because originally, like I said, the apparition appeared because I was being stalked in the first place. So why did Lisa help the Collins conspire against me when Sarah was involved? See, this is what I'm saying is there was an utter disregard for who I was. I have looked at this from so many different angles. Okay. It's like this is a family abuse situation, one that I find very difficult to overcome. Okay. So, like I said, there's a lot of people who don't understand why some people go no contact. I'm telling you, yes, there's times where people have to go no contact, and they do not need people getting involved in their intimate family relationship. Okay, in this case, I was somebody who needed, protection from employers. Now I realize, and I got my sweater on my jacket, I'm cold. I realized that I was being stalked by the kids of 533 and the kids of 533. And then I know they also brought up this issue about me, choosing a different spiritual path. And they wanted to question that by, hang on a second, by saying, oh, you can find a job anytime you want to, and blah, 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 and they were exaggerating it with their friends and getting, bullying up on me and using me as a focal point to elevate their social standing, right? They were evil to me, is what it is. Okay. And so I've come to understand this, and, it's sick to me. It's sick to me, and then that's exactly what it is. I'm disturbed by all of it. And meanwhile, I was just sitting here trying, I'm blown away. I'm blown away at how all of this was going on and how long it's been going on and how people let it go on. Okay. And now I'm still disturbed by the whole issue of being stalked this long, and the fact that churches were involved in that. Okay. So the message I'm getting right now is that there is people who realize that they were wrong. Good. And that they feel as though there's going to be good times ahead. Like I said, I don't know how that works. It's hard to find or feel like there's ever going to be good times. I will tell you, what you come to find out about your family is very destructive. It's like your mind is blown. My mind is blown. Okay. They're not my family. So that blows my mind. Okay. And then the fact that they were willing to put me in a situation with Bruce and all this other, my mind is blown. Okay. It is. Okay. And something about me sharing my knowledge, bringing money, and something about that. I hope so. I hope that I will be able to benefit from, the skills that I do have. And it's hard for me to. I know that Sarah worked hard to try to block out my name, and she did all kinds of stuff. And I don't know. Whatever the case is, I'm tired of dealing with people's injustice. Okay, I didn't deserve that. You know what I mean? I didn't deserve it, and no, I would not. Okay. I would not ever be a part of an extramarital affair. Okay. So I know people would love to say that, but no, I've never been. Okay. And yes, I do smoke marijuana, and I'm not going to say I'm ashamed of that. You know what I mean? I feel as though that was an issue that these people brought as an excuse to use against me. And I know that the same people who were using this as against me were a part of this, same people who smoke marijuana themselves. Okay, they were the same people who smoked marijuana themselves, including Jim Culligan, including Bruce Collins. Okay, so this was them just grasping for straws, and the whole issue is that when people get older, they start attacking people's jobs. This is what they do. Okay, like I said, there's a genocidal nature to some people. Okay, and my family was genocidal. Okay, Jim Culligan was genocidal. Jim Culligan felt that urge very strongly. He was thinking very deeply about the possibility that I had opportunities. that I could have opportunities. You know what I mean? And I get this intuitive feeling from him. He was somebody who resented that. Okay. The brother-in-law that I spent Christmas with, the brother-in-law that I laughed at the Christmas table with, the brother-in-law that we used to go to the park and play frisbee with and spend time with. Yes, that person. That person was willing to stab me in the back. Yeah, he was. Over what I see as just an office job, but he saw as something that was important that he was willing to kill somebody over covertly. You know what I mean? And no, he did not see the importance of family ties. He himself had Nazi leanings, but he married a black woman and then had offspring with her. Don't ask me to make any sense of it. It's not going to make any sense. Why? Because all of this was built on mind control. All of it. Okay. And so this is where we are right now. So contrary to what people would like to believe about me, being disrespectful to churches. No, I do not disrespect church. No, I do not have a problem with people attending church. No, I do not have any issues with any specific religion, except for religions that went out of their way to hurt me specifically, right? I don't have any issues with that. Okay. And nor do I have any issue with the idea of Christ or any of that stuff. So that was a lie. Everybody lied or exaggerated or believed stuff. Even this stuff that they believe about C.B. Berganza. Oh, C.B. Berganza could fly. I doubt that. I believe that he could astral project. He may have, even in the past life, been able to astral project at will. You know what I mean? And no, I do not believe that is a sin. That is his own soul. You know what I mean? So what I'm understanding is, like, what C.B. Berganza dealt with was irrational racism, like irrational stuff that he can do, like I said, and that things I've done as Maria Gordon, stuff that I have every right to do, that somehow maybe Sarah is, because she has some sort of compulsion of me, she feels as though she wants to bully me out of, and she honestly feels as though she has the right to do that, right? And the only basis that she has is that she was competing against me. That's the only thing. Okay, no, she doesn't have the right to legally do anything to me. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even related to Sarah. I never married Bruce. Sarah is Bruce's legal wife. You know what I mean? I don't have any connection to Sarah. Okay, so Sarah should have never been a part of my life, and I'm sorry that she did. I think Sarah was just a racist woman. Now, the message I'm getting right now is that my third eye is open. My third eye is open about people who I used to know. And I don't know who, and everybody who is still alive or not alive. I try to shut all of that out of my mind, because I find all of this very traumatizing, that somebody would actually bring religion into the workplace. Okay. And I'm disturbed by it. And I try to tell people not to do that. Okay. I've been talking about this issue for quite a long time. A long time. You know what I mean? And, I was hoping that people would see the importance of employment law. I was hoping that they would see the importance of it and respect it for what it was immediately. You know what I mean? Like, because to me, understanding how employee laws in general are created is enough to make me understand that there is no loophole around there. Like, they need to be followed. You know what I mean? And see, that's what I was trying to emphasize. I couldn't emphasize it enough. I that was not the only video I made. The Dominion Theology video was not the only video that I made. I made two of those videos. I made videos about just several videos. Okay, several videos I've made. Okay, some were over 3 hours long. Okay, that I've made about this, and talking to people about their cult and improving it to be a cult, but they still kept pressing the issue. So, like I said, I understand that a lot of times I deal with situations to where I felt as though somebody was trying to psychologically abuse me on purpose. Now I understand who this person is. This person was her. This was Sarah. She had a fixation with me. Okay, to her, I was somebody who she looked at as competition, and I know I find it very annoying that she would inflict her pain on me for the long time because she did, and especially over the person that she did. Like, I don't see where Bruce is worth it. I really don't. The message I'm getting right now is there is peace in Bakersfield, and I should feel safe that me and Houston are protected. I hope so, because I've never felt protected here in this community. I've always felt like, and I've always somehow must have dealt with their stalking on some level. You know what I mean? They must have made it their point to sit here and surround me with their little weirdness with the kids of 533 as well as the Collins family, and making up their stupid rules willy nilly and whatever. You know what I mean? So I get it. You know what I mean? It's so funny because I think about the kids from 533 and how they have demonstrated several times that no, they didn't like the kids that I was associated with. Like if I'd bring them home and introduce them to Rashawn would immediately criticize them, talk about why he hated them, make fun of the way that they look. But these same people that I would bring home is he would socialize with them behind their back and want them to be on their team. See, this is a sort of ridiculous behavior that you find with these kinds of families, these toxic families, these families that want to absorb everything, to be a part of your life, at all cost. You know what I mean? Now I realize, like I said, why did it take me so long to? Because people do not look into their own families. They don't. They always take their families for granted. They say, okay, well, this is my sister. Why would I be suspicious of my sister? You think that your sister cares about your well-being just as much as you care about hers. Instinctively, you know what I mean? Intuitively, you feel this way, but that is not the case. That is not the case. And see, this is where I must have fallen short of in many of my lifetimes, is the fact that I've dealt with feelings of family betrayal when in fact I should not have been. You know what I mean? I should have just, but I didn't. Of course, the issue is setting people up in these fake families in the first place. This is a bad idea. Okay, so this should tell you right now that there's really no holy thing, associated with this. Is bloodline targeting. That's all it is. Okay. The message I'm getting right now is something about the image of the business communication. It's hard for me to communicate. I know that Sarah put a lot of issues involved to try to prevent people from, communicating with me, responding to my email, my calls, my whatever. It's like she looked at my survival as her competition. She was very mentally ill, very mentally ill. Okay, why in the world would you be so fixated on somebody for so long? Yes, I have the right to find employment. You know what I mean? Chances are, no, I will not be a CPA. Oh, yeah, well, I'm not going to be a CPA. I'm not going to now. Okay, but the job opportunities that Sarah was sitting here worried about me getting, I'm not going to get. So I'm trying to do the best I can. You know what I mean? Based on what I have. And I feel as though Sarah was a competition that I never asked to take on. Okay, I resent it. I never asked to be a part of her competition, and I resent it. Okay, I don't want to play games. Okay, ever. Okay, something about people talking about me everywhere, and that people believe that I have an extraordinary mind, somebody who's able to think things into existence. See, I don't see it from that perspective. I look at it as, if I could think things into existence, I would be living in a nicer home, right? I could be living at, this here and there, I think, wherever, whatever, right? So no, I don't believe that I can. I think people have unrealistic expectations as to what I do. Okay. To me, it is not an unrealistic expectation for a person who has the ability to find a job to, number one, look for a job, to expect to be hired at some point. That's nothing unusual about that. Okay. So I don't think my ideas are far fetched or that it's weird. Okay. So where exactly are people talking about? You know what I mean? I think people have exaggerated this story to the point of where it just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Lisa thought perhaps maybe I could wiggle my nose, snap my finger, do an I dream a dreamy, head flip or whatever, and then all of a sudden I'm instantly at this job or something. No, I mean, things take place. Things take time. You have to be able to, number one, train yourself to care about whether or not you even care to even involve yourself. I mean, God knows you have to put up with a bunch of people that are disrespecting you and stuff. And, there's things that you have to build up. There's a lot of things you have to build up within yourself to deal with the outside world. You know what I mean? So that takes time, But would I say that me trying to help myself helped me? It was the only solution for me? Yes, because nobody else was ever put their time into me other than to bully me for their own selfish gain. See, I've never had anyone in my life. Okay. The message I'm getting right now is that in the third eye is open to enjoy it. Enjoy my third eye being open. And then also, I should feel more relaxed because there are people out there that do support me. And like I said, the church has made a point to keep that. I think it's because they were taking instruction by Sarah. And how all this works is so strange. It's so very strange. You know what I mean? I don't like to think about it. It's too weird for me. It's too weird for me. You know what I mean? It definitely is a hate crime. Something about people do recognize that I am a wholesome person, and that yeah, I would have to say my character in the Bible and that what's been written about me in sacred writing, it is bizarre. I'm an interesting character, okay, but yes, I do have respect for what is right. I do. Okay, that somebody really can't say. Okay, what I do believe the church has had an issue with is the fact that each and every time I had to deal with irrational people who wanted to bully me for no reason other than me being holy. And when I was able to stand up to myself, they would look at it and possibly take it as, a way of them looking at it as, oh, you're being defiant. No, I'm not being defiant. I'm just standing up for myself, my rights. Okay. And you're actually creating the argument because I came here in the United States to practice my religion, whatever that religion was, whether it was an actual religion or no religion at all. You know what I mean? And I didn't deserve to be like moved from place to place or not have the same kind of, opportunities to have a peaceful life without being badgered over that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? And so here we are in the modern day. And who's to say, like I said, I can sit here and take out my cards for each and every person involved in this. Like I can sit here and pull cards for Bruce. Like, was Bruce a part of my past life as CB Braganza? Because we both started off in Lancaster, right? As Maria Gordon and Bruce Collins. Who's to say? Why would I want to spend more time figuring out evil people? Because I will tell you, throughout my life in existence, that's pretty much what my life consisted of: evil people. Okay. Seems as though I've dealt with evil people in all my life. You know what I mean? People that just want to mess with CB Braganza, or people who want to take from CB Braganza or want to exploit CB Braganza but never give him any recognition. Right? And then in this case, we have this issue with Sarah. Okay. And in CB Braganza's past life, I get the same feeling. He's been bullied and exploited for issues relating to religion or things that he had the right to do. You know what I mean? He has the right to not practice a person's religion. He has the right to not be married. You know what I mean? But it was like people wanted to bully him over that. And then even the issue of him inhabiting objects, you're going to tell somebody what to do with their own soul when they're dead. Think about how controlling people were and how out of line they were. The message I'm getting right now is, yes, I know all there is to know about life. I am fully enlightened. I am. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. I'm going to go get some tea and relax a little bit and start thinking a little bit, to do some concentration techniques, and come back with another video sometime later. I talk a lot about this issue because, I'm not comfortable with it. Like, I feel deceived. I feel abused. I feel strange, you know what I mean? Because, you come to find out that, it's not just you were mobbed out of your job, it's deeper than that. You're adopted, that your family was fake, that your kids they went to churches, they were all mind controlled to be weird. You know what I mean? They were all weird. Every single last person that you knew was dishonest, and they were dishonest because of, like, they thought they were doing the right thing. Brainwashing, you know what I mean? And I've been in situations where I've dealt with bullying and I've dealt with very little support, and I've had to handle things on my own. So yeah, I think, my story is quite interesting. So I'm interested in hearing other people's stories, especially their targeted individual stories, especially about, at this point, I'm talking about the family betrayal. I did talk to somebody, they sent me something. It could be maybe a specific agreement that they want to have or whatever before they interview. I cannot open it. So I did send them, letting them know I need to get a better copy, or if they could resend it in a different way, please do so. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video, and I will be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Bye bye.